8:42 right now on Jammin 107.7. Coming up next hour between 9 and 10, another $500.
Yes, wait for the music to stop. The money's going to drop, and we're going to give you another $500 today.
So set a reminder on your smartphone between 9 and 10 on Jammin 107.7 is your next chance to win the cash. So very, very cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, this came to my email yesterday, and it was in the subject line of the email, don't hire a hot nanny.
Yeah, right? Because there's a lot of things happening lately with celebrities. Like a lot of celebrity guys cheating on their wives with nannies.
It's been huge. And we have on the phone with us Florence and Romano. She's from, you're out in Chicago, right?
I am, the Windy City. It's snowing here today.
Well,
Wow.
good morning to you. And you know, you're an author. You have a book. We're going to talk about that in a second, definitely. And we were talking off air about all these huge celebrities that hired in really attractive nannies, and they ended up breaking up relationships like crazy.
It's the strangest thing, isn't it? To think that you can't hire someone attractive because you can't trust your spouse. And you know what? Maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, but I think maybe people should just do the right thing. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
And hire a nanny that's not good looking?
Well, if that's the right thing for your family, that might just be it. I think that's you make a good point. But you know what? It comes down to trust, doesn't it? It really comes down to what works for your family, and you and your spouse need to be on the same page and be like, listen, is this going to be hard for you? Is this going to be a temptation?
Right.
And if you can be open and transparent about that, then that's great. Then you're going to set yourself up for success. But if you think that temptation is going to be too great and your husband or your wife is like, hey, I really can't handle this, then you know what? Thank you for being honest, and let's move on to the next thing.
Right, that's true. And you know what's amazing is that more than half of U.S. households have nannies now. It's like 60%, right?
60%, exactly.
That is huge. Now, let me ask you something, too, because, you know, you've written about this for a long time. You've been a nanny for a long time. How do you screen for, like, a naughty nanny in the interview process? You're going to cheat on my husband?
A naughty nanny. Wouldn't you love to ask that question, too, when you're in the interview with the prospective nanny? It really comes down to my hard and fast rule of transparency. I always go back to this. When you have an interview with the prospective nanny, you really are going to want to get to know them on a really true level. And this is one of the only places you can ever have an interview like this. It's not going to fly in corporate America asking these kind of questions. Mm-hmm. You want to know their principles and their hobbies and just everything you need to know about them, because then your chances of mistrust are lowered by a huge margin if you're on the same page and you feel comfortable with each other. But you know what? It's also not always going to be the right fit during the interview process. You're going to find some red flags, perhaps, and maybe they won't be huge. Maybe it's just a personality thing. Maybe it's a religious thing. Who knows what it is? But it has to be the right thing for everybody.
Now, do you think like parents should require like a special dress code? Because here's the thing. I was watching TV. I saw Gavin Rossdale and Gwen Stefani's nanny. Her name was, I think it was Mindy Mann was her name, right?
Mm-hmm. Was she cute?
Mm-hmm. She's gorgeous. And, you know, some of the things that she was wearing, I'm like,
yeah.
Do I blame him? Yes, but like, okay, you know?
Risque.
Yeah. Like, should you, as a parent, require a dress code of your nanny?
I think you can absolutely require a dress code, whether or not that's conservative dress or a uniform, just like any job.
Right.
You can be required to wear something specific. And again, it's not about what's best for you necessarily. It's what's best for that family, and it's about you being a role model for those children. So if you don't agree with the dress code that they want to be implemented, then that's not the right family for you, and that's okay. But they certainly can ask you to do so.
Now, one more question for me. If a person gets into the situation like a nanny, and like we just said, over half of households in America have a nanny, whether it's, you know, full or part-time, whatever the situation is, what if the husband makes advances towards the nanny? What should they do at that point? Should they just quit? Should they go to the wife? Like, what do they do? Join in? I don't know.
First of all, either spouse can make the advances, right? There's male nannies now, too.
Right.
In either case, you should tell the other spouse immediately, and then, this is the most important, you need to resign.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even give it a trial period to save my life. You need to stop it right then and there, because ultimately, you look guilty as well for having participated at all for any length of time.
Okay.
And then an important thing to remember, too, is after something like that happens, go back to those kids. You got to make sure they understand that they didn't do anything wrong, that you want to always remember the focus, and that's making sure those children feel loved and secure.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So no hot nannies.
All right.
If they're gorgeous.
Brian,
What?
try to remember all this
Okay,
stuff,
I'm sorry.
okay?
I'm sorry. I got it all. It's all good. It's all
Mindy
good now.
Man is no good.
No
Just
good.
Stay away from her.
So I want to talk about your book that you have out, and like I said, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, Nanny and Me, my book that came out in May. It's a book that helps children understand the transition from being cared for by your parents to being cared for by a nanny or a caretaker or a babysitter, and it's told from the child's perspective. It's basically a catalog of all my favorite memories with the children, and it helps the children understand, because in a lot of situations they feel anxiety having a stranger come into the house, or someone, even if it's someone they know, taking care of them that's not their parent. So it's there to help them understand why this is happening, that their parents love them, this isn't anything they did wrong. And for the parents, gosh, this can be really traumatizing for them, making sure they're trusting someone, leaving their child, they have all this guilt. And this book really brings peace of mind to parents to use as a resource to help them through this transition.
All right. Very important stuff. And how can our listeners get a hold of the book?
It's available on my website, FlorenceandRomano.com, or Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any of those places as well.
All right. Sounds good. Florence and Romano, thanks for the tips this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a pleasure. So much fun to wake up to this.
Absolutely.
I hope I talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, and
Thank
enjoy the
you.
snow.